Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, 9 September 2020. The first article for discussion is A Case for Down to Earth Governance. To understand this article, let me give you certain scenarios. Few MPs got selected from Andhra Pradesh, few other from Tamil Nadu, few other from Telangana. These people who are selected from different regions, will they protect the regional interests in parliament or do they work altruistically towards a national interest? Obviously, in India, if you see the working of democracy, these people work towards parochial interests, parochial regional interests. But what is the hypothesis of democracy? These people who got elected from different regions, when they sit in the National Assembly, they are supposed to work in the national interest. They have to remove their parochial interests and think for the common good of the entire nation and make the policies in that direction. In this case, when division of Andhra Pradesh has happened, you saw clearly that MPs from Telangana, MPs from Andhra Pradesh divided on regional lines. So, second thing is, today, money power is increasing. If one has to run a political party, does he need money or not? Why the BJP is so powerful political party today? The major reason is its coffins are full. It has got lot of financial resources and that is the major reason for its strength. So that's why money power is determining the strength of the political party in India. Don't you see this? There is some inconsistency in democracy over here. Then what can be the solution for this? Let the power be given to the people. Let there be more democracy within the political parties. If we have to bring regional and national interests together, or else if we have to make the people, our leaders, to think beyond the regional interests and towards the collective national interest, the party has to become the forum for discussion and we have to bring in discussion and also congruence of various minds within the party. This can be possible only because of internal democracy. What is the second way forward? You can ensure devolution of functions to the local governments or local committees or cooperatives. So when decisions are being made at the lowest possible level with regard to water, food, many other things, sanitation, then obviously the relevance of the higher levels of the government comes down for day-to-day administration related issues that will improve the governance. This is the essence of this article. The next article is what is in a NAM and India's alignment. NAM stands for Non-Alignment Movement. You know that Prime Minister Nehru is one of its pioneers. In this context, how relevant is NAM today? That is what is the question. So let us see the context of the NAM when it has originated. Some people see NAM as a relevance to the Cold War politics. Some others see NAM an ideological proposition. As a relevance to the Cold War politics, they see NAM as an alliance. Already there are two other alliances. One is capitalistic bloc, other one is communist bloc. And not aligned to both these blocs is a new alliance called NAM. That's how people saw it as. It means once the Cold War has ended, the NAM also has lost its relevance if we see from that perspective. The second is, NAM is not an alliance. NAM is an ideological proposition. How can we say that? NAM is about maintaining autonomy in one's own decisions. Our NAM is all about independence of action. If we see from this perspective, maintaining sovereignty is an important aspect of NAM. Let us see the agenda of non-alignment movement in those days, that is disarmament and talking or fighting colonialism and apartheid, etc. In that way, it stood for greater human cause. After the NAM has ended in 1980s, late 1980s, the major reason is it was seen from the Cold War politics. What is the next big take on foreign policy of India? After 1980s, what is the biggest thing India did on foreign policy? Sometimes we talk about strategic autonomy. Some other times we talk about multi-alignment, non-alignment to multi-alignment. But do we have a fixed posture on future of the foreign policy? Probably not. And second, in this article, India-USA interests are also being spoken about. What the author is saying is, let us see the maritime domain. We have conflicts in the South China Sea and US, China, they are taking the sides. You know, US is taking the side of Vietnam and Philippines. China is trying to be seen as an encroacher of the resources of these countries. What India's position there? Freedom of navigation. That is what is India's position. In that case, the maritime interests of India, Australia, North, Southeast Asian countries, everything is coming into an alignment. But when we come to the continental alignment or landmass alignment, India wants to maintain relations with Iran. If India wants to have future relations with Afghanistan, that is possible through Iran. Iran and Russia becomes important for India from the perspective of its connectivity to Central Asia, Europe, and other countries. So, America here is not interested in having good relations with Iran, and American sanctions on Iran are clearly visible. So, on a continental mass, India and USA's relations, our interests are not aligning. That is another point. Let us see the China Russia India tangle over here. If you see, China and Russia are coming into a partnership because Russia needs money. Russia is economically very weak, and China needs knowledge, research products of Russia. So that's why China is saying that I will import to close to the $45 billion of oil from you, and Russia is very happy to welcome that. So that's why Russia is becoming more neutral on issues between India and China. But if you observe in the long run, Russia is expected to become a junior partner to China in this relationship. Why? Because China is economically a superpower now. In this case, Russia is expected to depend more on China, and once the Russia transfers its knowledge to China on defense products, etc., it's bound to become the junior partner. In this case, if Russia has to become assertive, it has to align with India, or India has to keep space open for Russia to align with it in the long run. That is what author is trying to put over here. This is what the essence of this article. The demonization of dissent. In India, we have made certain laws which can restrict our fundamental rights in the national interest. Two among them which are misused and which are there in the news recently are National Security Act, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. These are meant to protect the country from various grave terrorism and various kinds of offences. In this case, on whom these are being used, let us take Kafil Khan. How the decisions are made to detain a person under these laws, because the bail provisions are very restrictive and getting a bail is very difficult if a person is arrested under these provisions. Let me give you an example. Kafil Khan, he was arrested on one or the other case of corruption, negligence, etc. Then, when he got the bail in that particular case, he was booked again under National Security Act. Who makes the decisions on National Security Act? It is the district magistrate. So the problem here is the subjective opinion of the district magistrate is final to arrest these individuals. So the subjective satisfaction of the district magistrate can undermine the rights of the citizens. That subjective satisfaction word has to be eliminated. That the satisfaction shall be subjected to facts, not to selective reading of the district magistrate to the interests of the political masters of the day. Safe session. You know, any emergency situation will strengthen the arm of executive. Even it is external emergency, internal emergency, or emergency like situation due to pandemic, everything gives huge powers to executive. During COVID-19, across the world, executive arm of the government got strengthened like never before. In this case, legislature, how to ensure the accountability of the executive is the major question. And many of the countries' executives are not working. In India, anyhow, the session is going to be conducted. It will be a truncated session where question hour will not be there, but non-starred questions, unstarred questions can be asked, where the answers are given in written. 0 hour is restricted to half an hour. So, but anyhow, conducting of a parliamentary session is a positive step towards accountability. But many of the laws are passed by the government as ordinances during the recess of the parliament. We have to see how government will get the business done in the house, that we need to understand. But the take home point is this. In any emergency situation, executive gets strengthened, accountability systems gets weakened. Vaccine for all. Recently you might have heard the word vaccine nationalism. Countries shall not corner the vaccine which is being developed for their own good. So equitable access is the word which we really heard. What does that mean? The needy has to get the vaccine first. In this case, WHO chief, what he says is, rather than all having in few countries, let the few have in every country. It means the workers on the front line to fight COVID-19. And the second is the people who have got comorbidities, who can get affected with the virus, shall get the priority in getting the vaccine. That is the opinion of WHO chief. Aftershocks of Sterlite. What a businessman want, what an investor want, predictability and access to market. policy predictability, access to market. If the governments of the day bend to the popular pressure and take knee-jerk reactions rather than making decisions on the rule book, then obviously investor will be scared. This is what exactly happened in the case of Sterlite Industries. When Sterlite planned its expansion, people started protesting against it. Finally, it led to firing by the police in Thoothukudi and an inquiry is commissioned. But in the meanwhile, the government took a decision to close down Sterlite Industries over there. It made India to import the copper. And second, Tamil Nadu as a manufacturing destination lost its charm. So, knee-jerk reaction shall be replaced by predictable policy rule-based decisions in the case of manufacturing in particular is what this article tells. Mountains that sustain millions. September 9th is declared as Himalaya Divas. But author says today Himalayas are losing their charm. There is water scarcity, there is climate change affecting there, and mindless infrastructure development, loss of livelihoods for millions, all these are there. So we need to have mountain specific regional planning and ensuring livelihoods for millions of the people living in those places is essential. The planning has to take that particular direction. That is what author is saying. Digital divide shadows post-pandemic education. Many a times I tell to you, digital divide leads to democratic divide. Digital divide accentuates every other divide in the country. Digital divide leads to gender divide, democratic divide, developmental divide, rural-urban divide, regional divide. Every other divide gets accentuated. Here we are specifically talking about educational divide due to digital divide. Today in the pandemic era, information technology, internet access have become major access points for education. So, any lack of internet access is also lack of access to education. So, if you take right to education is getting undermined due to digital divide in India. What the author is trying to say over here, our survey of NSY is trying to say over here is this. In India, at least 20% of households, only 20% of households in 14 states have internet connection. It means 80% of the households do not have internet connection. So that is digital divide, level of digital divide in this country. And regionally, if you see, South India has better digital connectivity compared to North, and Western India compared to Eastern India. And among the poor and rich, obviously rich have the internet connection. Rural urban areas are better connected. So among the men and women, men are well connected to the internet. This is all we need to see. 40% children not fully vaccinated. NSO has released another report called Health in India. In this case, Indian children are getting the first dose of vaccine, but more than half of the children are missing the subsequent doses. It is alarming. As of now, we are predicting that at least 2/3 of children are getting full 8 vaccines during their childhood and they are resistant to disease. And this myth is broken through NSO survey. GDP to shrink 14.8%. You know that in the first quarter, GDP shrunk 23.9%. Based on this, Goldman Sachs gave new predictability, that is Indian GDP in this financial year, that is for 2021, is expected to shrink by 14.8%, worst in the world. And next year, it is expected to boomerang, or it is expected to come with a higher growth because of the low base effect. As the growth shrunk this much, any minimal growth in the 2022 financial year appears to be a huge economic growth. This is what Goldman Sachs says.